Okay. Thank you, Ashley. All right, we'll call the meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. And first order of business, I'll ask, is there any declaration of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? Many of the members. For anybody out there that's joining us, the Deputy Mayor is joining us virtually. There he is. And with that, Ashley, can I ask you to give an indication of anybody that wants to join virtually or is on virtual? Some of the rules and regulations there for them. Ms. Noble?
Thank you. And through you, Mayor Eccles, before I begin at any point, if you get disconnected, you can dial 1-647-558-0588 and enter the ID for this meeting, which is 891-5626-2480. Both members of council and staff have been briefed on the various features of the Zoom meeting software and will be raising their hands physically to speak. For members of the public, if you require any technical assistance, please send a chat message to myself, Ashley Noble, Communications Coordinator, and I will attempt to assist you. It should be noted for members of the public that this meeting is taking place across two meeting platforms, both on Zoom as well as being live streamed on YouTube. Public participation, if any, must be done through Zoom and cannot be done through YouTube at this time.
Thank you, Ashley. This is a public meeting for zoning amendment 19-2024, 422-314, concession 6, NDR Bentig. So the public meeting is open. I have a few announcements to make. I would like to remind everyone that the purpose of this public meeting is to receive input from the public. Every person who attends a statutory public meeting required under the Planning Act shall be given an opportunity to make representation in respect to the proposed bylaw. All submission materials for this application are available at the West Grey Municipal Office during regular business hours. Recent amendments to the Planning Act by the province now limit appeal rights on zoning bylaw amendment applications to the applicant, public bodies, and specific persons who made oral or written submissions to the municipality prior to the decision being made. Specified persons generally include energy, railroad, telecommunications providers, as well as NAV Canada. This meeting is an essential part of the decision-making process. Feedback received will be considered in the decision of West Grey Council. An explanation of how the public and public agency comments factored into the decision will be included in the notice of passing of the bylaw. Where changes made in the proposed bylaw after holding of a public meeting, council will determine if any further notice will be given respecting the proposed bylaw, and the determination of council as to the giving of further notice is final and not subject to the review in any court, no matter the extent of the change made in the proposed bylaw. That's it for my comments. Mr. Clerk, you have some comments to make? Jamie.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Eccles. Notice that this public meeting was circulated to the prescribed bodies posted on the subject property and mailed to all properties within 120 meters of the subject property in accordance with the Planning Act. Anyone wishing to provide verbal comments at this public meeting is asked to sign the sign-in sheet located on the speaker's table. The personal information collected at this public meeting is collected under the authority of the Planning Act. The information collected will be used to complete the zoning bylaw amendment process and will form part of the public record. Questions about this collection should be addressed to me, the Director of Legislative Services / Clerk. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the Corporation of the Municipality of West Grey on the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, you must make a written request to the Municipality of West Grey, care of the Director of Legislative Services / Clerk.
Thank you, Jamie. And with that, we'll get down to a presentation from the planning and development. Mr. Smith, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you mentioned, file ZA-19-2024 for Gerber. The purpose and effect of the application is to rezone remnant or / retained farmland to prohibit the construction of a new detached dwelling. This application is part of a consent application, file B10-2024 Gerber for a surplus farm dwelling severance that was heard by the West Grey Committee of Adjustment a month or so ago. There's a condition of the severance. He's rezoning to, again, restrict building a new dwelling on the farmlands is required, and that requirement is from the provincial planning statement and a requirement of the Grey County official plan. We go to page 9 of the PDF, please.
Here we are.
So this is not the finalized schedule. Well, this is what it's going to look like, but this obviously is not the official schedule that would be included with the zoning amendment. But it gives you an indication because of somewhat a little bit of complexity on the property about the number of zones that are going to have to go on in order to satisfy both the provincial planning statement, the county official plan, and the new severed lot. So the area A1ZZ is the severed lot itself where the dwelling is currently located. The A1XX is a prime agricultural area, which will be restricted for a dwelling. And the A2YY will also have the same restriction on it. And the zoned NE portion at the bottom will remain unchanged. And we'll go one more picture, please. So this is actually the the A1ZZ up in the corner. This is the surplus farm dwelling that was taken off in the consent B10. We reviewed the application regarding the provincial planning statement, the County of Grey official plan, and the West Grey zoning bylaw. In this particular case, the zoning bylaw is prepared and for council is in conformity with the Grey County official plan and meets the intent and purpose of the West Grey zoning bylaw and is in conformity with the provincial planning statement. There have been no comments or concerns raised by the public or neighboring property owners, or any of the agencies that have not been addressed to either the consent or through the zoning in this particular case. And we recommend in this regard that the recommendation in the planning report, the council direct staff to bring forward a zoning bylaw to authorize the passing of an amendment as it relates to Z19 2024. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. And Grey County has no comment. Don't think they're on the line today.
Commented during the consent period. They usually carry over, but yeah.
If they were, I don't see them on the line today. There was a part here.
Yeah, they noted no concerns with the zoning as implementing the conditions, so.
Thank you. Presentation from the applicant. Do we have somebody? Ashley? Have somebody online or? Oh, I think that was Tom just dropping his water bottle. All right, thank you. Good, sir. Any comments you want to make? The applicant's got no comments. He's fine with what it is. Okay. Comments from the public. Yeah.
Okay.
Give your name and ask you to sign there, up to you. So it'll be the gray button on the microphone there, sir.
Okay. My name is Wim Snoek. I'm the east neighbor of this property. I'm in favor of separating that and hopefully have people living there. Just wondering, what is it going to be zoned for, the house? Is that, I'm just saying something, rural family dwelling, or what type of zoning will it be? Because it's not clear on the paper I got what zoning it's going to be actually.
Okay, I'm going to go into Mr.
The zoning provides for a detached dwelling and accessory structures within the A2 zone.
And what would it be called?
It is going to be zoned an A2.
Oh, A2. Okay.
Right.
So that is the 2 acre or whatever that's going to be separate.
That's correct.
Okay. And for what use can you then use the house for? What would that be what would be included in that?
So the A2 zone in our bylaw allows for it to be used as a house,
Yeah.
allows for a home occupation, allows for a home industry on the property, allows for accessory buildings and structures.
And with that, let's say Airbnb and things like that, does that fall under that zoning as well, or is that special again?
The bylaw does permit in places, and I'm not 100% sure, but bed and breakfast operations in certain cases.
Okay. So A2. Okay. Yeah, that's just what it. I just want to know what type of zoning it would be. It was not clear on this paper what that was going to be. So other than that, I have no
Sorry, I need to correct myself. I keep on saying A2 since we deal so much with A2. It's going to be zoned A1, which is identical to the A2 zone in terms of its uses I just described. So a detached dwelling, a accessory structures, a bed and breakfast, a home occupation, and a home industry, but the letters are A1, not A2.
Okay, A1. Okay, yeah, no, that sounds good to me. Just want to have that so I know what I'm looking at. Thank you for your time. I push the button again.
Thank you very much. Sure. Ashley, is there any question? Anyone online have any questions? Seeing none? Then any questions from any of the members of the committee? And or anyone like to move the recommendation? And Councillor Hutchison. Doug?
Yeah, I'll move the application based on our planner's recommendations.
Very good. Seconder? Councillor Shea. Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments? Need to do an updating on the aerial photography. The barn's no longer there on that barn, on that property, so.
As soon as the county pays for it.
Excellent. Thank you, David. Okay. Any other questions on the motion? And I shall call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Do you have any statements to make on that? Good. So the bylaw will be, the amendment is there, and the bylaw will be on the next council meeting, correct? Very good. All right. That's that for that one. I guess we'll move on. The second one on today's agenda is zoning bylaw amendment ZA 2024 to 204 Fuller Street, Newstead. And I have some official announcements to make for that. I'd like to remind everyone that the purpose, sorry, before I get to that, Ashley, you're up always before me. I'm always number 2 to you. Thank you. Go ahead, Ashley.
As noted at the opening of the meeting, public participation must be done through Zoom. Members of the public joining virtually wishing to participate in this portion of the meeting may do so in one of 2 ways. If you have joined via phone, press *9 to raise your hand. This will let us know that you would like to speak. Alternatively, *9 can also be used to lower your hand. If you have joined virtually, you can either raise your hand by clicking either the blue or yellow hand icon located in the bottom corner of your screen, or by sending a chat message to myself, Ashley Noble, Communications Coordinator, either stating that you would like to speak or what you would like read into the record on your behalf.
Thank you, Ashley. I'd like to remind everyone that the purpose of this public meeting is to receive input from the public. Every person that attends a statutory public meeting required under the Planning Act shall be given an opportunity to make representations in respect to the proposed bylaw. All submission materials for this application are available at the Westgrade Municipal Office during regular business hours. Recent amendments to the Planning Act by the province now limit appeal rights on zoning bylaw amendment applications to the applicant, public bodies, and specific persons who made oral or written submissions to the municipality prior to a decision being made. Specified persons generally include energy, railroad, and telecommunications providers, as well as NAV Canada. This meeting is an essential part of the decision-making process. Feedback received will be considered in the decision of the Westgrade Council. An explanation of how the public and agency comments factor into the decision will be included in the notice of passing of bylaw. Where changes made in the proposed bylaw after holding of a public meeting, Council will determine if any further notice will be given respecting the proposed bylaw. And the determination of Council as to the giving of further notice is final and not subject to the review in any court, no matter the extent of the change made in the proposed bylaw. Thank you. And I'll turn it over. Comments from the clerk. Mr. Eckhart.
Thank you, Mayor Eccles. And through you, notice that this public meeting was circulated to the prescribed bodies, posted on the subject property, and mailed to all properties within 120 meters of the subject property in accordance with the Planning Act. Anyone wishing to provide verbal comments at this public meeting is asked to sign the sign-in sheet located on the speaker's table. The personal information collected at this public meeting is collected under the authority of the Planning Act. The information collected will be used to complete the zoning bylaw amendment process and will form part of the public record. Questions about this collection should be addressed to me, the Director of Legislative Services / Clerk. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the corporation of the municipality of West Gray and the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, you must make a written request to the municipality of West Gray, care of the Director of Legislative Services / Clerk.
Thank you, Jamie. And overview, Mr. Smith.
Mr. Mayor, as you mentioned, files at a 2024 Kipfer in Newstead, and we will please go to page 24 of the PDF, please. Page 24 is the zoning schedule, the formal zoning schedule. You can see the subject lands on Forler Street, the size of the property. And if you notice, just to the south of that is the I-249 zone, which of course is the Newstead Community Center. The other land uses in the area to the north, the R1B zone, and to the west would also be an R1B zone. So it is basically a residential area with the Newstead Community Center kind of dropped in the middle of it. Can we go one more page down, please? Page 25. And this is the aerial photo taken. Mentioned in the planning report, which I'll get to in a minute, is an accessory structure on the far west edge of the property. The property overall is vacant, as you can see, except for that accessory structure. A well treed along the community center side and well treed along the street side, although those trees are in the West Gray road allowance, not on the property itself. And of course, the northern edge of the community center itself along the property line. So the zoning amendment is required to change the zoning from C2 highway commercial to R2 medium density residential. There is no building proposed at this time. There's no structures. We have no drawings. We have no building permit. There was a request to change the zoning in anticipation of whether or not they wish to build themselves or to put it up for sale as a residential lot. The lot would meet all the requirements of the R2 zone. As I mentioned, there is an accessory structure located at the far western edge of the lot. Accessory structures are not permitted prior to the construction of a principal use, such as a dwelling. That is the same across all of our residential areas. The only places where you can see where it slightly changes is on an agricultural lot where you can have a barn before you have a house, because the principal use on an agricultural lot is farming, and therefore the barn comes along as an accessory structure versus in town or residential where the dwelling is the principal use and everything else is accessory. Recommending that an H holding be placed on the lot to prohibit the use of the accessory structure until such time as a principal dwelling building permit is issued. An application to remove the H holding would be required at that time. We couldn't see any other way around it, and in order to prohibit the use of the property in that regard. There were no significant issues raised by the commenting agencies on the property or on the proposal to change from the highway commercial to the R2 zone. I'm going to speak specifically to the West Gray official plan, which does apply, of course, to Durham and Newstead. As I mentioned, the lot in this particular case is designated residential in the official plan, but zoned highway commercial. I have no idea why. Mind you, that goes back a long ways, and maybe some of you have a better idea of why we ended up with a C2 zone here than not, but it is what it is. That's what it is on the zoning bylaw. The current C2 zone certainly allows for a lot of kind of somewhat wicked highway commercial uses in the middle of a residential area. That is zoning as of right, which means they could get a building permit for a C2 use today if they met the requirements of the C2. So changing it to the residential zoning and matching the residential designation is certainly a good thing in terms of the area in general. The R2 medium density residential zone permits a number of different styles of housing. Single detached, duplex, triplex, fourplex, or a 4-unit street townhouse. They would theoretically all fit on the property as long as they meet the setback requirements, of course, of the R2 zone. We thought the property had that potential, considering that on the south side, it has a neighbor that's not too worried about whether or not it's a medium density residential use. It's well bordered and it's certainly a far of sufficient size in terms of being a potential infill lot as opposed to just a single detached R1B zone. So that regard, that's why we're recommending the a special R2 medium density residential zoning for the property. With coming along with that, and you're starting to see this because of the requirements of Provincial Planning Act, provincial planning statements is a requirement for additional residential units, ARUs within buildings on properties. At the moment, we are only kind of progressed to allowing them within a principal building. So for example, a single detached house with an ARU as opposed to a single detached house with an ARU in the backyard. Those are coming. We have no choice about that, but we have not zoned this property yet for that or any other properties at the moment. Maybe as an aside, this morning you heard about the Rosate zoning amendment. That zoning amendment also includes the potential for additional residential units within the principal dwelling units on that property. And this matches that kind of zoning within our urban areas where they will be on full municipal sewer and water sanitary services. So with that in regards, we recommend that the excuse me, that in consideration of staff report Z 2024, council directs staff to bring forward a zoning bylaw to authorize the passing of a zoning amendment as it relates to Z 2024, as the application does conform with the provincial planning statement, conforms with the County of Grey official plan, conforms with the the municipality of West Grey official plan, and maintains the intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you, David. I will ask, is anyone here representing the applicant? Then I'll ask for comments from the public and start, Ashley, is there anybody online that wants to comment on this? Is there anybody in the chambers that wants to comment on this? Is there any council members would like, any committee members like to speak? Yeah. Doug, council, yep. Mr. Hutchison.
Just a question, the barn or shed that's on there now, it's going to stay, right? There's no, we can't force them to remove it at this point. Sorry.
No, well, yes and no. I wouldn't forcing the removal of it to the zoning. The shed itself, it's a relatively large structure. As long as I met the zoning setback requirements for an accessory structure kind of thing, as opposed to, say, sitting right on the lot line or things like that, maybe would have looked at that, right? As in posing a hindrance to the property next door. It's been there for years, decades probably, and that relationship between the existing property to the west and this building has probably been long established, if you know what I mean, in terms of an acceptance. Would somebody like to see it gone? Maybe, but at the same time, if the building is of sufficient construction, we don't see any reason to remove a building that's in sufficient state to be used again. So I guess if the neighbor would have raised particular concerns with it, we maybe would have looked at that kind of requirement kind of then. So.
I find it curious too, when we look at some of these planning things, that as this one shows us, there's a chunk just to the north of the shed and the barn there that's cut out of it. Like, seems funny that some of these irregular shaped lots and how that comes about. When you think of development, laying out of properties, that we think of, we just talked about one in Durham here that was laid out years and years ago, and streets that were never used. At least the lots look like there's some kind of regular, whereas we seem to get all these lots that are irregular. Any comments or thoughts on how that comes to be or why that is?
Yeah. So the lawning arrangement for Neustadt was probably pretty irregular when the Crown first established the town plot. But there, of course, was no controls over severances until the late 70s. So people made arrangements, right? And what the arrangement was, or an understanding, or about what you're getting, is, you know, between 2 or 3 property owners at that time. So why the chunk came out, who knows? Maybe somebody from the families or whatever it is would know. But these days, there's far more, as you know, far more control over that kind of thing. But you're looking at legacy changes as opposed to the Crown's original intent, probably for the town plot.
Why?
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Thank you. Why, does do the regulations not permit, having an accessory structure without a house?
It's our zoning bylaw that speaks to accessory structures. It's not provincial planning, okay? And I guess you could take it more as an example, is that, I'll give you one from my experience years ago where a property owner wanted to have an accessory building first before the house. And the reason why was he had a very noisy business that he wanted or his wife didn't want him doing it on their property. And he had another property, so she wanted him to go build his garage over on their other property and make all this noise over there in their accessory building. So it got away from the wife, if you know what I mean, and went and annoyed the neighbors. So usually when we have the accessory buildings, at least when you put it on our property, you kind of annoy yourself if you in terms of how you use it, including everything from stacking lumber outside and sticking boats and everything else around it, because you have a piece of property that you can use that way that's away from your own house, but it annoys the neighbors, if you know what I mean. So it's as much as making sure that our land uses first in a residential area is for the house, and then you get your garage per se, you know, or your accessory building so we don't get these potential problems that could crop up when you allow accessory structures that people then go and use for whatever in that mind. So it's more about compatibility than it is any particular regulation per se about how it goes. As I said, it changes when we take a look at agriculture, when a barn is accessory to the farm. So we don't have a principal dwelling, but everything else is pretty much that way. Commercial can be a little, highway commercial can be a little varied. So for example, if you had a building supply center, you can have your accessory buildings, which are 3 or 4 times the size of your principal commercial use because of storage of wood and so on and so forth. But on residential, we're pretty much of the mind that the house comes first and the accessory buildings come second.
And do you know if the accessory building is being used currently? For what?
We didn't, no, we didn't ask.
They would bring a do not use holding on the accessory building wouldn't prevent storing boats next to the building or stacking wood outside the building.
So we're getting back to some of the more on the property standards kind of things about how we use property. So I don't think there's no rule that says you can't go and stack lumber, or firewood on your property down the street that you happen to own. Building structures, of course, is different than stacking firewood or putting 2x4s or whatever it is on your property, right? Which speaks more to our property standards bylaw about keeping properties neat and clean and the grass cut and so on and so forth than it does to the structure. So your question is, would they be able to leave wood outside, lumber and all the rest of it, pile up against the building? Sure. If it became a property standards issue, it would be raised that particular way. But certainly the building itself is going to be allowed to stay within that regard.
Okay, so I guess ultimately what I'm asking is, given that the building already, you're not supposed to put a building before you put the house, but given that the building already exists and it wasn't put there inappropriately, it was just put there before this zoning change happened. Do we have to put the restriction on not using the building, or could we just skip that and let them continue to use it the way they have been using it?
The decision to put the holding is certainly yours. All right. Do you have to? No, you don't have to. I did talk with the chief building official about how we are dealing with these things. And we certainly didn't want to set any kind of precedence where we're getting accessory buildings and using accessory buildings before houses. So what you're seeing here has been probably a standardized approach in a number of places, including my particular business, if you can put it that way, that we don't allow it to be used. There's no relationship again to a house, if you know what I mean, right? So if we put it there, who do you go complain to when they leave the property? You can't go and knock on the door, the back of the house, and say, what's going on here? You have to approach them within their accessory building and off they go every day. It's like, yeah, whatever. I don't live here. Don't really care. Complain to the town about it. So we're trying to forestall that and being consistent within that. Yes, there may not be a problem with this one, but there also could be. Somebody buys the lot and goes, yeah, I'm gonna go back there and store all kinds of things. I'll put corn, all the rest of it. We'll have a mouse problem. Who cares? Not my property. Or sorry, don't have to live there. So I think we do try to just forestall that kind of potential. But as I mentioned, it is council's decision to not put the H on it. In our particular case, we are recommending it.
Joyce, go ahead.
I'm just, some knowledge on this property historically was owned by the Davids, and they own both those parcels where the R1B is. And then that used to be where he ran his construction, like he was a truck driver, or he ran dump trucks, I should say. So that, I think originally that was all one parcel. So that's probably where that building came from originally. So I agree with Councillor Shea about, is it really required to keep the holding? I don't think that should stop the change of the zoning and being able to use it as well, the building.
Just going to, one slight comment. No, excuse me, a number of years ago when I got into building residential lots out in the community and whatnot. Why is the secondary, the accessory building not allowed to be built and then build the house? I can say from experience, because there was a number of accessory buildings were built and lived in for 20 years before, well, that's right, the house never did get built. So, I think the purpose of having a holding symbol on there until residential gets built, and then the building could be used in compliance. But I think the holding symbol is a good idea at this time, just to maintain that, whether it is in the rural and or in the urban, that let's get the house built, and then they can use the building for business, whatever you want going forward. Doesn't get misused. Any other questions, comments? Recommendation is there. If anybody would like to move that. Councillor Townsend and Deputy Mayor Hutchison. Okay. Any further comments, questions? Motion's been moved and seconded. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Okay. Look forward to that one coming forward. The next one, I think this is, the last one. We have 3 on today's agenda. The next one, zoning amendment number ZA 23 2024 443 530 concession 8. And I'd like to declare that the public meeting for this portion is open. And Ms. Noble, can you give anybody out there a update on how they may be able to join?
As noted at the opening of the meeting, public participation must be done through Zoom. Members of the public joining virtually wishing to participate in this portion of the meeting may do so in one of two ways. If you have joined via phone, press star 9 to raise your hand. This will let us know that you would like to speak. Alternatively, star 9 can also be used to lower your hand. If you have joined virtually, you can either raise your hand by either clicking the blue or yellow hand icon located within the bottom corner of your screen, or by sending a chat message to myself, either stating that you would like to speak or what you would like read into the record on your behalf.
Thank you very much, Ashley. I have some comments from the chair. I'd like to remind everyone that the purpose of this public meeting is to receive input from the public. Every person who attends a statutory public meeting required under the Planning Act shall be given an opportunity to make representation in respect to the proposed bylaw. All submission materials for this application are available to the West Municipal Office during regular business hours. Recent amendments to the Planning Act by the province now limit appeal rights on zoning bylaw amendment applications to the applicant, public bodies, and specified persons who made oral or written submissions to the municipality prior to a decision being made. Specified persons generally include energy, railroad, and telecommunications providers, as well as NAV Canada. This meeting is an essential part of the decision-making process. Feedback received will be considered in the decision of the West Grey Council. An explanation of how the public and the agency comments factored into this decision will be included in the notice of passing of the bylaw. Where changes made in the proposed bylaw after the holding of a public meeting, council will determine if any further notice will be given respecting the proposed bylaw, and the determination of council as to the giving of further notice is final and not subject to review in any court, no matter the extent of the change made in the proposed bylaw. Thank you. And Clerk Eckensweiler, you have some statutory comments.
Thank you, Mayor Eccles. And through you, notice of this public meeting was circulated to the prescribed bodies posted on the subject property and mailed to all properties within 120 meters of the subject property in accordance with the Planning Act. Anyone wishing to provide verbal comments at this public meeting is asked to sign the sign-in sheet located on the speaker's table. The personal information collected at this public meeting is collected under the authority of the Planning Act. The information collected will be used to complete the zoning bylaw amendment process and will form part of the public record. Questions about this collection should be addressed to me, the Director of Legislative Services / Clerk. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the Corporation of the Municipality of West Grey and the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, you must make a written request to the Municipality of West Grey, care of the Director of Legislative Services / Clerk.
Thank you. And report from Planning and Development. Mr. Smith, David?
Mr. Mayor, Council, files ZA 23-2024, Elders, refer to it as the West Lot for Elders. First of the application is to rezone one new residential lot that was created via original consent file B 2024 for Elders West, heard by the Committee of Adjustment for West Grey there a month or so ago. For historical, the east part of the property, which is Lot 3, Concession 8, was subject to 3 new lots that was also heard by Council and West Grey Committee in the last 6 months or so. The property is operated as the Fern Golf Resort. It has a number of designations, rural land use and hazard, a number of constraints such as significant woodlands, and ANSI Life Science, Natural Heritage System core features on the property. The zoning amendment that's up on the schedule that's up on the screen, it is the lot on the far west side. It looks all similar now, the large A2 lot. And we're going to go down, Ashley, to page 38, if you could, please. So here we've overlaid the zone lines or / lot lines over top of the air photo. And again, this was reviewed by West Grey Committee of Adjustment and approved a month or so ago. And you can see where the lot lines jog in and out in order to take in the water feature and around some of the current fairways on the Fern Golf Resort. So that's why it's kind of a funky shape, and that's how it kind of looks on the ground once we laid some lines over top of it. That's not 100% accurate. We had to do that by hand. And of course, we'll see a survey coming in and the zoning will match that up at the end of the day. The zoning is required in order to implement the consent conditions. In this particular case, we've circulated the application to the County of Gray for their comment. They don't believe environmental impact study is required. Saugeen and Ojibwe Nation has also been commenting on this particular application in regards to archaeological, and they're not requiring any archaeological assessment on the property. The property is currently zoned where the new lot is to be created, OS 221-H, which requires the amendment to a straight out A2 rural land use. We reviewed the application against the provincial planning statement, the County of Gray official plan, and the West Gray zoning bylaw. In that regard, we find that the application conforms to the provincial planning statement, conforms to the County of Gray official plan, and maintains the intent and purpose of the West Gray zoning bylaw. And we recommend that council direct staff to bring forward a zoning bylaw to authorize the passing of bylaw amendment as it relates to Z 23/2024. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. Would offer this, is there any comments from the applicant? Recognize he's not here. Not online. Comments from the public. Ashley, do we have anybody online, public? And nobody in the chambers? Meeting room? Open it up. Is there any questions from any of the committee members? No? So we just say, curious. The individual on a 100-acre lot, if A2, you could get 4 severances per se, as was done on the east side of the property to the east, and then on this one it goes to a 10 or 12 acre, 14 acre, whatever it is, just for one lot. So when do we see the applications coming back for a split of this lot?
Well, as you mentioned, the lands are, the rules do allow, as you mentioned, the 4 lots plus a retain on 100. So the east side, as you just mentioned, is done. It's got the 3 is recently done, plus he retained part of the golf course. Here there was some initial interest in creating more, but at the moment they've applied just for the one that's before you through the consent in that. Is it too big? Guess the market will tell. In terms of splitting it, that would probably be relatively difficult because the county does have a lot frontage to depth requirement. So in other words, they don't allow for the creation of narrow, long lots. So it's 3-to-1, whatever it is kind of thing. So it may not, I have to take a look at the numbers, but it might not be eligible to be split considering the depth if you were just to take it halfway, if you know what I mean. So it's also a little funky setup, as you can see, with the water feature and everything else in order to get what you want out of it, but who knows what people want.
Or they could take a small 2-acre lot off of each corner up and onto the road allowance as well too. And then make a real funky lot down the middle. But hey, it's just my curiosity. Speaking of yep. We're getting to that age where 3 holes might be enough to play in a day. Any other questions or comments? There is a recommendation there. Do I have anyone that would like to, how do you want to handle that recommendation? Joyce? Thank you very much. And my microphone was on, so you could be heard from here with that. It's fine. No. Joyce is moving the recommendation. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hutchison. Doug? Any further comments or questions on the motion, on the recommendation as moved? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council.
All right. And I believe that's all we have for today. with all business done on the agenda, I will declare the meeting adjourned. Excuse me. Thank you, everyone. And looks like fall is out there today with a bit of rain and cooling.